Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and it's the 26th of October, 2023. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So apologies for missing yesterday's episode, everyone. I did have a valid reason for yesterday's rug fuel. I was sick, I had a sore throat. Hopefully it's better today. I was coughing a little bit last night, but seemed to have just been a temporary thing, thankfully. You know, I thought that maybe I was getting COVID again or something, and I really did not want to get COVID again. Last time I got it, it completely wiped me out. I was in Denver when I got it last for ETH Denver. But anyway, back today with a bunch of things to get through. So first off, I just wanted to mention this thing again. I think I talked about this the other day, but this is, I guess, US specific, where the IRS is trying to push forward new rules that would basically decimate crypto in the US, to be honest. Now, I don't really think that there's a huge chance that these rules are going to go through as is. I feel like they're going to be revised down, but obviously making noise about this and letting the IRS know that these rules are just like unworkable for crypto is the best path forward here. Now, I did share the other day that there is a way to do this through the Lexpunk army, but Coinbase, with their Stand With Crypto initiative, actually has another way to do this, which I'll link in the YouTube description below. And it's very similar to the Lexpunk way, where basically you can see here there's a three-step process. You choose the topics and tone for your comment to the IRS. An AI will generate your personalized comment, and you can copy and paste the comment directly to the kind of regulations.gov website here in order to send your feedback to the IRS. So yeah, it's never been easier to give feedback with using AI here. And obviously you can, as I said, choose your own topics and tone for your comment in order to personalize it to you. So just wanted to give that shout out there for you guys. You can go check this out for yourself. We'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. Alright, so Devnet 10, Dencun Devnet 10 is now live, and the devs are having fun, or the core devs are having fun with it. So as you can see here, Parathosh, obviously very famous for a lot of the testing that goes on in the Ethereum ecosystem, especially the Shadow Forks, put the entire B-movie script in a blob on Devnet 10. So for those of you who don't know what that is, it's literally that, like the Bee movie. If you Google Bee movie, it comes up. It's who was the voice of the bee in that movie? I think it was like Ben Stiller or something like that, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, the entire script was placed into a blob on Devnet 10 here, obviously for testing purposes. And as you guys know, this will expire after, I think it's 18 days. That's what it's set to, because blobs aren't permanent storage. They expire after 18 days. And if you want to, I guess, access that data again, you have to bring the data yourself in order to do that on chain here. But the reason why I kind of want to talk about this, not just because it's funny, but also because there's been a bit of discussions around what blobs are actually going to be used for on mainnet. Because obviously we're kind of creating these blob style transactions for layer 2s, for rollups to take advantage of. That's the kind of main purpose. But anyone can do anything within blobs, or as long as you're following the protocol rules. And it's very similar to, I guess, ordinals on Bitcoin, where essentially you can put things like NFTs in blobs, and I'm sure people will do this, but and people will do this because it may be cheaper to do that than storing NFTs in call data on the kind of like normal layer 1 Ethereum fee market, because as you guys know, there's separate fee markets here. And people will ask me the question, is like, you know, isn't this going to affect the whole purpose of blobs? And I kind of respond to this by saying I don't think so, because if you really think about kind of costs with blobs, and with people doing NFT stuff, and with people doing anything really within blobs, as opposed to kind of what rollups are going to be doing, at the end of the day, the rollups are always going to outbid those other projects, because rollups really are, I mean, as the name implies, a rollup of all transactions that happen on their network, and they generate a lot of fee revenue, and so they can afford to basically pay high fees for the blobs, right, or higher fees than anyone else for the blobs. It's kind of like what happened with Layer 1 Ethereum, where essentially the high value kind of transactions such as DeFi price everything else out, because DeFi leads to MEV bots, leads to fees going up because of that, which leads to the profit margins dictating how high the fees go. And obviously, if there's more MEV to be extracted, the MEV bots are happy to pay more in fees, right? And that's why you see, that's a large part why you see the fees go up so much on Layer 1 Ethereum. And then there's obviously the NFT kind of stuff that happened in 2021. With all the hype around that. So people are kind of questioning, you know, are we going to see this with blob style transactions? And we might, you know, but again, I don't think it actually matters, because the rollups themselves will be able to outbid pretty much like everyone, and it'd still be cheaper than storing it within call data, and it also depends on like how often they want to kind of like buy one of these blobs or store their kind of transactions in these blobs. Kind of like settle down to these blobs, because at the end of the day there are blobs in every Ethereum block. Every Ethereum block is 12 seconds. So if a roll up doesn't want to settle for like 10 minutes, they can just wait for the cheapest blobs within those 10 minutes, right? They don't have to settle every 12 seconds. I mean, that probably isn't something that was worthwhile doing anyway. And because of that, that's just another reason why I don't think it's going to be an issue here. But also on top of that, as I said, blobs expire. So if you want to put your NFTs in blobs, the only purpose of doing that would be to essentially get maybe some kind of like cheaper way of minting NFTs than you would on normal layer 1 Ethereum. But if you're doing that, you're better off just going to layer 2 anyway, to be honest. Like, it doesn't really make much sense to do it at layer 1, because as I said, the blobs expire, which means that your NFT is going to expire in 18 days. And by expire here, I don't mean that like the kind of like a I guess like pointer is lost forever, so to speak. The point is still there, but the I being expire is in like you have to bring your own data if you want to recreate that state in order to access that kind of NFT in its most trustless form, so to speak. It is a one of n trust assumption where only one person has to have the data, but this is how 4844 works. In a full dank sharding world where we have data availability sampling, there's probably not going to be 18-day blob expiry. It's probably just going to be rolled into the general kind of history deletion or the history EIP, which is EIP quadruple 4, which I've spoken about before, where essentially anything after a year would basically get discarded, and if you wanted to keep it after a year, you would have to keep it yourself. So I think this kind of notion of pay once, store forever on Ethereum layer 1 is very much going away over the next few years, because as I mentioned the other day, it really doesn't make sense for Ethereum layer 1 and for all the full nodes, by the way, that run the Ethereum layer 1 chain to store everything forever for everyone. It just doesn't make much sense from a perspective of access, because 99% of users are not accessing that data, right? Ever, pretty much. And if they are accessing that data, they're doing it through third-party services. They're not actually running their own full node to do that. Like, for example, if you wanted to access tax data, you go to Etherscan, right? You don't actually run your own, well, most people don't do this. They don't run their own full archive node in order to see what their balance was at block such and such 6 months ago. They use third-party services. So the logic follows that, okay, well, if people are just going to use third-party services anyway, then there's really no point storing it all on chain and making it so that the chain becomes, I guess, like heavier and heavier over time, in perpetuity, basically. So if people actually care about their data, they can just download it themselves. And again, it's a one of n trust assumption. The data cannot be tampered with, because if you try to bring it on chain or if you try to recreate it, it will not match what is on chain. So and that's why it's one of n trust assumption, because you only have to trust one kind of one person, right? You only have to trust that the data matches what's on chain, and then you can know that it hasn't been tampered with. So yeah, but that's stuff that's on the Ethereum roadmap for the next, I guess, like few years. It's not going to come maybe not in the next couple years, but it is definitely a longer term roadmap item. But when it comes to blobs, yeah, they're set to 18 days right now for expiry. And because of that, I think that they're really only going to be used for their intended purpose, which is for rollups. I don't think people are going to be doing anything long-term on there, because they're just not designed for long-term things. Anyway, cool to see this today. Cool to see Devnet 10 finally live here. But you can go check this out for yourself. We'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, Hildobby has done some more amazing work around tagging the different staking entities within the Ethereum ecosystem. So he said here today, found and tagged 4.5% more staked ETH across 20 entities and many solo validators. Thanks to Tony here for the help on solo validators. You guys know Tony. I covered him a lot on the Refuel. He's the basically the MEV visualization guru, as I like to call him. But you can see the breakdown below here from Hildobby talking about where this 4.5% came from. And this isn't like 4.5% that wasn't known to be staked before. It's basically part of the unknown category that a lot of the dashboards categorize this out, because it's just, or unidentified. It could be called unidentified or unknown because we just don't know who they belong to. And Hildobby's doing a lot of great work in partnership with various other people in the ecosystem in order to identify as much of this stake as possible to give us a better picture of what it actually looks like. So according to Hildobby's dashboard right now, there is only 18.1% unidentified stake left to identify here. And you know, this latest tagging that he's done has brought this below 20%, which is really, really great to see. So He says here the newly added entities include entities such as Bitpanda, Binance US, BlockFi, MAV Protocol, Xhash, Ether Capital, BTCE, Corbit, Paxos, CoinDCX, Uphold, and 1,500 solo validators. So very cool that he found some more solo validators here. And he also found some new ETH belonging to existing entities such as Binance, Celsius, OKX, Bitcoin Suisse, Upbit, P2P, Bitstamp, HTX, and Poloniex, and below other updated stats here. And you can, of course, view all this on the ETH2 staking dashboard that Hildobby has. But, I think that when you're looking at this and you're looking at the unidentified portion here, you can clearly see that every time a portion of it gets identified, it's spread out amongst a number of different entities. It's not like this 18.1% or 20% or whatever it is belongs to one entity. And I think that's extremely healthy because it means that we already know the largest entities or the largest staking entities on Ethereum. The two largest by far are obviously Lido and Coinbase right now. Lido's at 31.5%, Coinbase is at 13.8%. And then after that, it just gets smaller and smaller. I think Binance here is at 5%. No, that's Figment at 5%. I think Binance is around that as well. And then it just gets smaller and smaller from there. So really, if you really want to make the argument that the staking ecosystem, if it's healthy or not, I really do think it's incredibly healthy because I've gone through this before. When you look at Lido, I struggle to agree with the notion that you should be looking at Lido as a single entity the same way you would look at Coinbase. And I explained this the other day where I basically said that with Lido, or with kind of these entities, it really is all about the node operators and what the, I guess, like umbrella entity can do with these node operators. And the worst thing that Lido can do right now is attempt to socially pressure the node operators to do things that go against the best interest of the Ethereum network. They can't actually force them to do it because there's 36 independent node operators, right? They're not part of kind of, I guess, like the Lido, I guess, definitely not the Lido team, but also like the governance umbrella too. And then they can add or remove node operators, which is obviously probably the bigger, I guess you could call it, threat there. But if you're comparing it to other ones like Coinbase, for example, Coinbase is one node operator, right? Like these 13.8% of stake is with Coinbase as one single node operator. So I would actually much rather, like, if you're talking about like least worst outcome, Lido at 31.5% is much better than Coinbase at 31.5%, right? It doesn't matter how aligned I believe Coinbase is with Ethereum, it is definitely much better that at least we have it Lido with, node operators that are spread out rather than under kind of one hard umbrella, which is what it is with Coinbase, because they have total control over those node operators. They can do whatever they want with them, or those validators, I should say, not node operators alone. And then it brings me to my kind of final comment on this, which is around that just because I think that it's better that Lido has that percentage than Coinbase doesn't mean that I think it's a good thing that Lido has that percentage. And I think this is where people get lost. I think that getting Lido's market share down as much as possible is obviously still the goal here, and there are a bunch of things in motion for that I'll and there's some of them actually that I'm going to talk about in a sec. But when you're looking at this from kind of like a holistic perspective and good versus bad, I think that that's kind of like what I look at it as. And also final note is that as I was saying before, if you look at the distribution of stake here, if you take Lido out of it, the rest of it's really healthy. Honestly, like the rest of the network looks extremely healthy here. It would require, as I said, Lido is not one monolithic entity where all the node operators are kind of like a hive mind. But if you take Lido out, and you wanted to get to over 50% of the stake again, you would have to add up, I think, at least 10 entities here, probably more than that, to get to over 50%. And these entities, more often than not, have absolutely nothing to do with each other. And especially when you look at entities like Rocket Pool, which are around 2.9% of the network, there's thousands of node operators there, right? So when looking at these things, you have to kind of dive deep into the nuance here. You can't just look at them in a vacuum and say, oh, okay, yeah, that's bad or that's good. I think you really have to dive deep here. But anyway, I got a little bit off track there. But good work from Hildobby here to continue tagging more of this unidentified stake. Now, I did speak about a couple of other things in the staking ecosystem going on right now. with regards to getting Lido's dominance down. I did talk about Swell's kind of pseudo vampire attack the other day, which was more like essentially trying to restore the SWETH to fair value rather than a vampire attack. And people would say, this isn't a real vampire attack. And to be honest, they were right. But in saying that, Swell, I believe yesterday, launched their actual vampire attack. So they're calling this Super SWETH or Super SWETH. I like saying Super SWETH or Super SWETH, however you want to say it, which is an actual vampire attack on Lido. So what this entails is that you can deposit STETH into this vault for boosted pearl hunting and up to 18% yield from staking, plus redirected DAO revenue. All STETH deposited is unstaked and swapped for SWETH, helping to diversify Ethereum. So yeah, if there is STETH kind of put in here, as it is said here, it is unstaked from Lido and swapped straight into SWETH. So this is a real vampire attack. Now, that 18% yield number probably gives you some flashbacks to Terra Luna, and you're probably thinking, how are they offering 18% yield on ETH staking? Well, thankfully, ABI here, who works at Swell, put together an explainer of where this yield actually comes from. Because as you guys know, you always want to ask this question because you don't want to get yourself kind of wrecked here. But basically, it comes from the SWETH staking reward, so just the normal staking reward you would get ETH staking. 100% of all the Swell DAO revenue is redirected to the vault, and STETH is unstaked, then used to buy SWETH, which is trading at a discount right now. So that's basically where that boosted yield comes from. So if you're feeling a bit like a degen, you're feeling like taking on some risk, because as I've said before, Swell's a new protocol, there is risk involved here, and the yields aren't going to stay that high forever. But if you are interested in taking on a bit more risk and also getting Lido's dominance down, then I can't think of a better way to stake your ETH right now. If you want to hold an LST, go buy STETH, go through this vault and deposit it into here, get that STETH unstaked with Lido, get your SWETH, and then start earning up to 18% yield. So yeah, I mean, I can't really see anything wrong with doing this besides obviously the risk of something going wrong on the smart contract side of things, or with SWETH, it could trade at a discount again because there's no withdrawals yet, but withdrawals are being enabled in Q1 next year. So yeah, I mean, to me, the risk isn't that high. I don't, you guys know I don't hold any LSTs, and any ETH that I stake is through solo staking. But if I wasn't doing that right now, I'd probably go with this. And I wouldn't put a lot into it, obviously, because as I said, there are risks involved here. But I think that we should be supporting all the vampire attacks that we can. Because at the end of the day, we obviously want to get Lido's dominance down here. And I should disclose, I should have said this before, but you guys know I'm an investor and advisor to Swell as well here. I'm not shilling them because of that. I'm shilling them. I'm not trying to shill them either, to be honest. I'm just kind of trying to highlight this for you guys because I know you guys want Lido dominance to come down. Well, this is a perfect way to do it. If not you, maybe someone you know, get on top of this. This is something that you're going to get rewarded for, and that you can also help keep the Ethereum network diversified on the staking side of things. All right, so today I'm covering a warpcast, or I guess like a Farcaster cast, not a tweet. So Cody from the Smoothly project here has announced that their countdown to mainnet has begun. So as a kind of recap here, what is Smoothly? Well, Smoothly is a tool which gives solo stakers access to the mean reward from block proposals. So it's basically, if you guys are familiar with the smoothing pool for Rocket Pool, it's basically the same thing as that, except it's being targeted at solo stakers or solo node operators, solo validators out there, where essentially you all join this pool and then you all kind of like pull together in order to make it so that the rewards are more smoothed out as a solo staker, and the rewards should work out to the same, if not more, per validator, especially because I think that they're going to have a thing where, they mentioned it here, which is something called Slide, which is a social layer incentives for decentralization, which is basically pulling together extra funds that anyone can put money into. So, for example, projects out there can put their tokens into, which basically gets paid out to solo stakers, as sort of like what happens with the Protocol Guild, I guess, how anyone can put money into that in order to get that paid out to core devs. This would be paid out to solo stakers here. Now, I am involved with this project. I'm going to be one of the Oracle operators for this project. As you can see here, I'm listed alongside a bunch of other people and groups here. I've been running this on testnet. I'm running it on my Rocket Pool box. Actually, funny enough, the Oracle here. So yeah, I'll be one of those alongside all these great people and entities here. And I will also disclose that I donated 5,000 USDC to this project in order to get them some security audits. I'm not an investor in this project. I don't think they've raised anything either. It's more that I donated because I wanted to see this come to mainnet, because obviously I want to see more solo stakers go online. So I just said, you know what do you need to get these audits over the line? They told me the number. I put in what I could at the time, and kind of donated it to them. And yeah, so yeah, keep an eye on this. As I said, the mainnet countdown has begun here. This is a 12-week countdown, so they'll be going live on mainnet in the next 3 months. But you can learn more about this project. I'll link this in the YouTube description below for you to check out. All right, finally on the core dev update side of things, or on, I guess, like the Ethereum core update side of things, Julian here put together a tweet thread saying, after months of work, I don't know how to say this word, but I'm going to try. The Kaustinen Verkle testnet is back online, and it comes with a lot of updates. So the updates are listed here in this thread. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But as you guys know, Verkle trees are a major roadmap item for Ethereum as part of the Verge upgrade, which at this point in time is probably not going to start going live until maybe the end of next year, like Q3, Q4 next year into 2025, of course. But it is a major upgrade to Ethereum that enables scalability and enables a bunch of other things to fall off of that. You can go check out what those things are on Vitalik's flowchart roadmap, which is now infamous, and you guys probably know about that already. You can go Google that if you don't have it handy, because I don't have it handy here. But I just wanted to highlight that testnet is now back online, and you can check out this tweet thread for all the updates. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so crypto payments has been that kind of one thing or one promise of crypto for a very long time now, right? I mean, Bitcoin started out as a peer-to-peer money system. It started out as something people were very excited about when it came to payments, and then over time, obviously, that kind of changed, and Bitcoin became more of a store of value. Then people came up with the idea of the Lightning Network, which just hasn't worked for a number of different reasons for Bitcoin. It is severely limited. It is not fit for purpose. It is not fit for scale. It's definitely not going to be a thing in my eyes, especially because it only, at least right now, works with BTC. And no one wants to spend their BTC. I mean, you can't be a store of value and a good money at the same time, and something people use for payments at the same time. It's just not going to work, right? People can use it as payments, but it's not like a good money. Like, why would you spend something that you expect to go up, right? It's that classic dilemma here. So enter L2s, right? Enter layer 2s, because Ethereum layer 1 can't do payments either because it's too expensive. Obviously, with payments, you need to get the fees down as much as possible. Well, with L2s, we now have that capability, right? But it's not just fees, it's also speed. On layer 1 Ethereum, the speed is not that quick because you have to wait 12 seconds for a block. I mean, it depends on when you do your transaction, when the next block comes in, but it's not going to be near instant pretty much ever unless you get in just before the block gets mined. It's going to be slower, and it's going to be more expensive here. So Coinbase Wallet is actually supporting real-time balance updates and near instant end-to-end payments on layer 2 networks now, such as Arbitrum and Base. And as you can actually see here, if you look at the video, this payment was done in 570 milliseconds, if I'm reading this correctly. So less than a second, about half a second here, where the payment was done and shown on the wallet here. Now, Brian Armstrong, obviously the co-founder and CEO of Coinbase, quote-tweeted this and said, "We've been working hard to improve the cost and time to confirm payments in Coinbase Wallet. Our ambitious goal is to get the average transaction under 1 second, end-to-end, instant, cheap, and global. Will require layer 2 becoming the default, driving up the percentage of payments happening on L2. This is how we drive the next wave of utility and apps in crypto and bring a billion people on chain." Couldn't agree more with that. I think payments is obviously that one final unlock of a use case that we need to do properly. We're going to do it at layer 2s. I'm really glad to see Coinbase putting their weight behind this, because they're perfectly positioned for this, honestly, especially because they're big supporters of USDC and heavily involved with that. And as I said, payments work way better on Ethereum and Ethereum L2s because of tokens. And because of the tokens, you get things like stablecoins, right? You get things that people actually want to use as money instead of tokens that were never meant to be money. I mean, ETH, in my mind, is still money, but like, the vast majority of tokens were never designed to be money. They're basically just like pseudo equity or meme coins or stuff like that. They're not money, right? They're not a currency. They're not something people want to use. And when looking at the kind of timing here, I see some people saying, you know, I saw in the tweet thread, in the replies to this tweet, a tweet from Mert here, who is very big in the Solana ecosystem, obviously saying here, you know, you can send USDC in 400 milliseconds for whatever that is. Like, obviously that's basically nothing, using Coinbase wallets this second, because on Solana, obviously the fees are basically nothing. And then he says L2s are great for many things, but Solana is better for payments. So I would kind of push back on this, not because of Solana or anything like that, but just if we talk about payments in a vacuum, and let's not talk about blockchains generally right now, what blockchain it gets done on, or anything like that. Let's just talk about the two main things that payments need. They need, or a good payment system needs. It needs speed, and it needs cheap fees, basically, right? So when it comes to speed and cheap fees, yeah, for sure, Solana has that, right? Solana has L2's beat right now. Like, there's no question about that. But at the end of the day, is there really a material difference for the consumer between 400 milliseconds and a second, or even up to 2 seconds? Like when you go, for example, in when you go and tap your card or tap your phone or your Pay ID, as we call it in Australia, or whatever, on an FPOS terminal, like, are you concerned if it's going to get confirmed in 400 milliseconds versus a second? I mean, I don't even think about that when I tap. Like, as long as it's done in 1 or 2 seconds, I don't care. And usually that's how long it takes. It takes up to 2 seconds a lot of the time, right? For it to just come up with that confirmation on the screen. And I don't think anyone has ever complained about that, right? About the speed of it. I mean, obviously, if it gets much longer than that, it starts becoming a kind of awkward thing of the person behind the counter is waiting for the payment to go through, you are too, and then you start fiddling with the machine, right? It only takes a few seconds for that to kick in. But up to 2 seconds, in my mind, is not a big deal. Okay, well, that's the speed thing. So speed, as we said, like L2s are pretty much fine for that. Like, even if it's up to 2 seconds, I think it's fine. So I don't think having the transaction be confirmed in 400 milliseconds versus a second matters at all. Right? And then it comes to fees. Well, of course, fees I think are the bigger thing here. At the end of the day, if you can do a payment for basically nothing versus even 1 cent, everyone's going to choose the basically nothing, right? Because even at 1 cent, it still might be too much. Like if you're doing a payment for $1, that's 1% of the payment, right? But then it also comes to payment processing fees too, because in the TradFi system, there are plenty of payment processing fees if you're using a debit and credit card versus using something like crypto today, where there's really no payment processing fee. It's just the gas fee, right? It's just the network fee. But with L2s, especially things, especially post 4844, but especially things that store their data off chain, the cost is basically going to be negligible, and it's going to be so low that it's just going to be covered by the wallet or the payment processor itself, and maybe in the background they take like a tiny sliver of a fee off of that, right? So again, like I just don't think that's a huge issue here, and I don't think that's a kind of thing that other chains could win on, right? But what is a big issue outside of those two things is liquidity, is network effect, is market share, is brand awareness, it's integrations, right? And what has more than that than Ethereum? What has more than that than Ethereum L2s, right? That whole Ethereum ecosystem has that. And that's why the payments are going to take off on Ethereum versus these other chains, because Ethereum already has that head start there. And I'm not saying it can't take off on other chains, but I don't think that the other chains competing and saying, hey, we're faster and cheaper is going to materially move the needle. Do I think that it's cool that they're faster and cheaper? Sure. Do I think that that most people are going to give a shit? No. So when we're talking about reality versus what people want people to care about, the reality is very different here. At least that's my view on things. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. But anyway, going to leave that one at that. You can check out this tweet. We'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, so Nocturne, a new privacy protocol on Ethereum, has announced a raise of $6 million, a seed round led by Bain Capital and Polychain Capital, with participation from a bunch of angels such as Vitalik Buterin, Tim Byko, Calvin Liu, who works at Eigenlayer, and a bunch of others here. You can go check this out for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But I believe I highlighted this project a little while ago on the Refuel. And I think that there were a bunch of questions around, why would this project survive in the face of, I guess, like OFAC sanctions, right? Like, what makes this project different to something like Tornado Cash or other privacy protocols? What makes them think that they can build this? Well, they actually answered this. So you can see here, State Layer shared basically a portion of the announcement here, and how Nocturne plans to comply with, I guess, regulatory agencies, or law enforcement agencies, I should say, around the world when it comes to money laundering and terrorism financing and stuff like that. So you can see here they've got their compliance plan where they say, to protect against terrorist financing, human trafficking, and other forms of crime, we put in place rate limits and filter out high-risk deposits. Depositors do not divulge any additional information beyond what already exists on-chain. Additionally, there is no custody risks. At no point are Nocturne or any of the system's off-chain actors able to freeze or redirect user funds. And there's deposit filtering using public on-chain metadata and analytics tools like TRM. We filter out deposit attempts from high-risk addresses, per address rate limits, so each address will have a default rate limit for how much it can deposit each day, and then there's global rate limits. The protocol will have a daily global rate limit for deposits across all addresses. Combined, the global and per address rate limits create high friction for illicit actors like protocol hackers. So I think this makes a lot of sense from a practical perspective, but I also have an issue with it from kind of a reality perspective. So if you're talking about just protocol hackers and them washing funds through privacy tools, that's fine. That's like an objective thing you can see on chain, right? Everyone can see when a protocol's gotten hacked. Like, it's all transparent. But when you're talking about quote unquote illicit actors, who are they illicit to, right? The US government has different definition of of who they consider an illicit actor compared to China, for example, compared to Russia, compared to countries in the Middle East, right? So if you're talking about privacy protocol that's on-chain, accessible to everyone around the globe, and if they're going to be using tools like TRM, really what's going to end up happening is that Nocturne is going to look a lot like a US-centric privacy app, where essentially they're following the US-centric or the Western kind of definition of who an illicit actor is, who they consider to be, you know, a terrorist, who they consider to be doing money laundering or other crimes and stuff like that. So then it becomes a kind of thing of, well, as I said, like, you're more of kind of like a US-centric or a Westernized-centric privacy protocol rather than a global one here. And as I said, for practical purposes, this probably makes sense because it will probably prevent you from getting OFAC'd or from getting like into trouble with regulators and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's not a protocol that's going to serve everyone equally. There's going and I'm not talking about like everyone equally in terms of who's a bad actor and who's not, because that's totally subjective, as I just kind of like outlined here. Because the protocol hackers stuff is objective, because you can see it on chain. Everyone agrees that if the protocol is hacked, well, then we can see that, and they shouldn't be able to kind of easily wash their money, because obviously people are getting hurt here. But when it comes to the much more subjective and much more ambiguous stuff like terrorism financing and human trafficking and other forms of crime, as they've listed here, it just becomes, I think, a weird kind of place to be. And I'm going to be curious to see how Nocturne handles this. I'm going to be curious to see how they scale this. Like, this just means Nocturne is going to be centralized forever, because they have to apply these rules somehow. A DAO wouldn't be able to apply these rules. It would have to be a centralized group of people. So I'm just very curious to see how that works. But it is a good middle ground for, I guess, like, just the quote-unquote people that I guess like the US considers to be honest actors and stuff like that, because essentially what it means is that you as a regular user are probably going to be fine, and you can use this as an actual proper privacy protocol, which I think is pretty cool. But yeah, I guess like those are the thoughts that I had when I read this. I was just like, we're getting into very subjective terminology here. We're getting into very kind of like meat spacey stuff here that, I don't know, it doesn't sit totally right with me. So I figured I'd just bring that up for you guys there. But anyway, congrats to Nocturne on this capital raise. Great to see more privacy protocols coming online here. All right, speaking of protocol hacks and general exploits within crypto, Sam Sun, who is obviously famous for being on top of all of this kinds of stuff, has announced today something called seal drills. So he says here, in a war room, every second counts, but without having been in one, how could you know what to expect or how to respond? Blog posts and tweet threads can only take you so far. Today, I'm excited to announce a new option, seal drills. So he says here, over the past few months, Isaac, myself, and other leading white hats and researchers have worked with Compound Labs and Yearn to help them operate for the most stressful situation any dev could face by conducting a simulated attack against their protocol. Now that we know it works, we want to work with you to make sure that your protocol is prepared for the worst. If you're interested in testing your incident response process, please fill out this type form and we'll get back to you ASAP. So this is something that's typically done within, I guess, like regular, I guess, outside of crypto cybersecurity, where there's these three kind of teams defined as red team, purple team, and blue team, where essentially a red team is tasked with trying to hack into something, the blue team is tasked with defending against any possible intrusions, and the purple team, from memory, sits in the middle. Obviously, a blue and red make purple, right? So they sit in the middle. But essentially, this sounds like something like more of what a purple team thing will do, where it sits in the middle, where they kind of try to attack the protocol, but they also try to defend it as well and make sure that they can essentially work to strengthen the protocol itself, strengthen the project itself, and set up processes in place to have where if something goes wrong, like mitigations in place and stuff like that, and kind of like standard operating procedures and responses here. So just a very, very cool initiative that was announced today. And the fact that it's being led by Samsung and some of the others that have been instrumental in protecting users from these sorts of things is a huge vote of confidence there. But anyway, you can go check this out. We'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, I mentioned the other day that the Pole token was going live on the Ethereum mainnet on October 25th, and it is now live here. Just wanted to shout out here because there was some confusion around this. I don't think there's anything you have to do right now. I believe that this is just the token contracts going live. I don't believe that there's any way to convert your Matic tokens to Pole tokens yet, and there's no need to just yet. That will come at a later date, but I just wanted to quickly clarify for people that right now, this is just the contracts going live. And I think that they're doing it this way because they want to make sure that the contracts are live, everything's running smoothly before they do, obviously, the token conversion. But I'll let you guys know when the token conversion takes place because I know a lot of you guys out there hold Matic. And yeah, I explained this the other day, so I'm not going to rehash what I said there. All right, last up here, just quick shout out. Crypto Canal is running a little initiative here where they said, help us get in touch with protocols that were hacked and whose funds were tornado cashed, searching for founders to give a written statement that they don't hold tornado cash or the developers responsible. This could really help build Alexei Pertz's case. So yeah, if you basically are a founder or know a founder out there that were part of a protocol that was exploited or hacked, and then those funds were, I guess, processed through tornado cash, and you don't blame Alexei or to the Tornado Cash developers for that, do get in touch with Crypto Canal here because your statement could be a big help to Alexei in his case that he's currently fighting and probably will be fighting for a little while here. But yeah, just wanted to shout out that for you guys there. If you are a founder or know anyone that's that this is relevant to, please get in touch. I'll link that in the YouTube description below for you to do so. But I think on that note, that's going to be it for today. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.